Greetings, everyone. How are you? They call me old school here. I'm representing TAIFA World Enterprise. I'm going to talk about the NAACP. I've done some research and I formed some conclusions from my research. Do your own research. It was founded in 1908, 1909. One of the most prominent founders was W.E. Du Bois. He was a mixed race, French and so-called African American. So, like he looked white. And the thing about him is that being colored, he actually hated black-skinned people. Most people don't know that about him. He's a very well-known author and say he's the leader of Pan-Africanism, but I'm going to show you how he hated dark-skinned people. Because his contemporary at the time was not Frederick Douglass, Marcus Garvey. Now, if you know Marcus Garvey, he's very dominant, African-looking, dark skin, prominent lips and nose, all the proud features of our ancestors. However, Du Bois, I'm talking about his character now. He called him a ape, a baboon. So that shows you right there. He thought that the more you look like you're white, the more beautiful you are. He had thoroughly adopted self-hatred of his people, of the so-called black people, which he did not look like. So you know what they say, what you cannot be, you despise that which you cannot be. So he could never be dark-skinned and beautiful. So he hated. You have quite a few people like that in history. Who's that head of the FBI? What's his name? Uh, oh, Edgar Hoover. Yeah, he's another mixed black who didn't have dark features and hated black people. Now you do your research. I'm just telling you my research. I'm not just talking about these people. But most people don't even know that Edgar, what's his name again? Well, I just said it. They didn't know he was even dark skinned. Hoover, Edgar Hoover. Yeah, most people don't even know he was dark skinned. I mean, he was mixed. It's just a lot of people who not really white. They're brown, but not as white as the white people, so they are called coloreds. And some of them, you wouldn't know who they are if they didn't tell you. It's a lot of people in Hollywood. You never know. I give you a few names just so you would know. A few names. Well, let's start with Natalie Woods. Let's start with most of these very well-known actors and actresses. This guy from Gone in the Wind, what's the name? Gone with the Wind. His name escapes right now, but let's get back to the point of this video, which is talking about the NAACP, National Association for the Advancement of Colored People. half mixed people. This is for their advancement. It really didn't have nothing to do with dark skinned people. That's why they actually sold them out. What I'm talking about, okay, I'm going to explain to you. They was looking for a way ever since the so-called liberation from slavery. Those who know the history know that black people was not the main slaves, white folks, but they switched everything, make it look like black people just got uh, liberated from slavery, and that's where everything came. We was the cause of all these problems. They try to put everything on us. So, man, so this what happened. They wanted to really get rid of the dark skinned people. The mixed people did. They are the ones who are the gatekeepers. Their thinking was that if everybody can just look light, there will be no hatred for dark skin. So the mission of the colored people was to destroy the color and make everybody light skinned. I mean, this is the mindset I'm telling you. They hated dark skin just by I told you comments he talked about uh, Marcus Garvey like he was an animal because he had dark skin and prominent features. An original man, a man created in an image of God, and you say he looked like a baboon. What that says about you? Could he really be talking about himself? I'm talking about Du Bois looking like a baboon. Well, I've seen baboons in the wild. They look closer like Du Bois than they do like black folks. Okay, so let's get back to the story. Why did these Negroes, uh, colored people, hate the dark skin so much? Well, because they couldn't get it. They was mixed. They couldn't have dark skin, so they said, let's destroy what I cannot have. So this is the climate the NAACP was created under the disguise of we want to help you. Have you heard that before? People coming to help you, being a worst enemy? Yes, it's all around you. Now, they've been looking for a long time for some things to destroy the people. So when actually they are agents of the government. Yeah, these colored people, they were agents of the government. So everything they start is because they start off wrong, it's not going to be right. Let me connect that with what's happening in Africa right now. I do a lot of study, a lot of reading, so I'm going to talk about a lot of different things in this topic. There's a Pan-African conference scheduled for the 7th of January where you had real well-known leaders from Julius Malema, Lumumba. All these are charismatic speakers, and quite a few others. And it was the call of Pan-African Conference. Pan-African. I remember that Pan-African now. These were started by colored people. You see? So right now, that show you, they call it the Niagara. Sound like something else, don't it? They call it the Niagara movement. Guess who was a prominent member of that one? You're right, Du Bois. Du Bois is all over the place talking about helping black people, but we know what he really think about black folks, the dark-skinned ones, by the comment he made about Marcus Garvey. Now, what's going on in Africa is that these African leaders are seeing through the crap. They know what the Pan African movement really is about, and it's about they have an agenda really of destroying black people. You know, before you talk about Pan Africans, you got to worry about your own country before you talk about what's going on around the world. You can't unite with everybody. You got tribalism in your own country. We're just talking about unite with all Africans. So, President of Ghana is going through a lot of attacks right now, but he see through the BS. He know who's behind the Pan African because the way it was started showed you it's not for us. So I'm happy that happened. Let you know that we're not all asleep. So let's go back now to the NAACP. In 1954, the NAACP finally found something they can use to destroy the black community. Remember, they were looking for a long time. Since 1909, they was looking for something. But we was too united, we was too industrious. Let's say not too, we was very industrious and very united and very intelligent, so we couldn't be deceived. So what they did was they found this case where this little girl, actually she was a Moor, Moor, because you had free blacks, what they call them free blacks, but really they was Moors. And we had our own schools. Yes, we had our own school. We had our own communities. And that's the joy of being a nation. You have your own culture. You're not trying to mix up your blood with other people. That's against God. So we done what God say do. We had our own schools. Now this little girl had a few hardships because she had to travel quite far to her school, her all melanated Moorish school. So they blew it all out of proportion because there was a white school in her neighborhood. Yeah, that's all this was about. So the NAACP, working for the government, came in and said, look, this is not equality. The schools may be equal, but this is not equal treatment because she's got to go way out there when there's a school right in our community. See how they set that up? Yeah, the school was in her community, but it wasn't. The school ran by all white people. It wasn't her school. But they used that trickery to say she has a right to integrate in that school. In other words, we want to get rid of these Moore schools. And that's how they did it. You know, went to a Moore school. Yes, I went to a Moore school. All melanated, beautiful people, and the way they really loved us. Yeah, I just had a few years after seventh grade. They started. This was in the '60s. They started integrating. By the time I went going to college, they had white folks in the college. I said, "Oh man, there go the neighborhood." So yeah, that's how they integrated the schools by using this more. They used to call the blackamoors. They call us Moabites. They call us Ethiopians, but they did not call us blacks, Negroes, African Americans. Those names come from the government. That's make you thoroughly enslaved. You enslaved with those names. That's why you're not respected. Those names identify you as having no rights at all. Just like Dred Scott say, no rights that an intelligent man will respect. And it's rightfully so, because if you give up your ancestral uh, the name, your ancestral name of the land of your forefathers, your identity, if you give that up, you lost favor with God. Nobody can respect you. Now this was done over 100 years ago. So the present generation, they have no idea what I'm talking about when I talk about ancestral name, not calling yourself black, you calling yourself a slave. This because when the enemy raised your children, let's say if the enemy is raised by your children, they teach them to hate themselves. What else can they learn? I mean, they can't be themselves because they don't see themselves anywhere. This is how you destroy people. I've got people in my family, sixth generation, born in the 1990s. Man, they act white. They may not look white, but they sure act white because that's all they know. That's where they grew up. Yeah, they grew up watching white people. They taught about white people, the schools and white people, the TV white. I mean, I'm just saying that's a sin against them. Would this society allow white folks to grow up like that? Only seeing black people, not seeing their own people do anything? No, they wouldn't allow it. But since it happened to us, they said, oh, we can really destroy these people, make them hate themselves. So that's the history. That's the main point I want to bring out. I'm on it, man. I did this under 20 minutes. Yeah, the NAACP is colored people working for white people to destroy black people under the disguise of we're going to help you. And you look at all the presidents, they're colored people. Colored people ain't got no love for dark skinned people. Let me tell you. They want to be the buffer between the blacks. In other words, they get favor from the whites for keeping the so-called blacks in line. That's their purpose. And it's understandable because they identify more with the white part of themselves than the dark part of themselves. This is the same thing happened with the Moors. Why the Moors empire fell. Because the Moors was going with the white women and all these bastards grew up in Spain and came back against their fathers. Don't believe me, study the history. Well, I say it the best way I can. That's it. And it's not me saying, it's the history. So do your research. Peace and love.